Hello everyone, welcome back to Vedic Enigma. So I hope that all of you are doing great. And this is the part 2 of personality and appearance of your future spouse video. So I had already made a part 1 on the same topic, in which I talked about the different signs that are present in the Navamsa chart 7th house. So that was only on the signs, and in this part we will be talking about the placement of different planets in the 7th house of your D9 chart. So there was a video that I had made in Hindi also a few months back. That was around, I think, 5 or 6 months back. So in that I had spoken about different methods, by which you can look at your Venus also for a male, and if you're a female then you should look at Mars also. So a lot of things were covered. So all of those things are also important to look at. But sometimes when I think I talk about too many methods combined, then people also start getting confused. So that is why I have taken only one particular thing in a video now. And like in the previous one I just spoke about the signs, and in this one I will be talking about the planets. But definitely again and again I'm saying the same thing, that you have to look at the planets. If there are no planets, you have to look at the sign. You have to look at the aspects, the dispositor, where that particular lord is placed, with which planets it is conjunct. So that is how you will get a full analysis of the 7th house of the D9 chart. And if you just focus on one specific information, then I'm not saying that thing is not true, but it will not give you a full complete view of the person. So that is why seeing all those things are also very crucial. But definitely if you even look at, suppose you have a planet placed in the 7th house of your D9 chart, so that particular planet will also have a very you can say high importance, high weightage in terms of telling you about the personality, appearance of your future spouse. But again, now if you have multiple planets placed there, like suppose you have 2 or 3 planets, then you have to look at what effects those 2-3 planets will also be having, so you can no longer say. And then you also have to see which particular planet is the strongest in that combination, like in that conjunction. So that is how you need to assess and see. So let's start with the different planets now. So suppose you have Sun placed in the 7th house of your D9 chart. So as we know that Sun is a planet which is the king in astrology, and it is a royal planet. So it is associated with government, authority, power position, and it's a fiery planet. So definitely a lot of heat is there in the Sun. So when this planet comes in the 7th house of your D9, so firstly it shows that the spouse would definitely be having very confident qualities, will be very bold, and will have a quality where he or she will be very assertive with whatever they need and require in life. And they are not really people who would easily accept whatever you tell them. They would definitely want to know the reason for it, and they would command attention from other people. And they are also the people who are very much concerned about how much status, reputation, image, what kind of an image they have in the society. And definitely having high standards, high quality. Like they would not like something that is of very mediocre quality, so they would be very focused on that part as well. So because as we know that it's a planet which is a royal planet, so definitely all the things that they would like also would be of a particular type and would be of a particular quality. So these are some of the things that you can expect. And in terms of the appearance part, we see that Sun gives a squarish body, like it's a square shaped body. That is what is mentioned in the texts. And it is also associated with honey colored eyes. So the spouse can have like brownish eyes, or like eyes that are light, so that is another quality that you can see. And usually gives a pretty good build, so they are people who are not their bodies have a lot of substance, and they have like well proportionate bodies. So they are not people like, even if they will stand very confidently, like some people their body language and the way they kind of are talking and the way they are walking. So it does not command a lot of attention. So they are the people who will, even if they're walking in a room, everybody will notice them. So they are that kind of a person. So you can say that. And some of the things that we can say that Sun is also a cruel planet, which means that it's considered a cruel planet in the sense that it is not very benefic, so that Saumyata is not there, which we generally associate with planets like Venus. So due to that reason, sometimes they can appear as a bit harsh also to other people, because people who command attention and they are very assertive. So sometimes people don't like them also, and they tend to become very lonely also in their life. So this is also seen, and especially if you see like in leadership positions also, like people who are doing exceptionally well and they have reached a particular level in their career. So they also, sometimes people don't like them, they have a lot of enemies, they become lonely. So these are also some of the things that you can see sometimes, but again you have to to give a full analysis, you have to see the aspects, you have to see if Sun is conjoined any other planet and in which sign Sun is placed in, so the sign will also tell you a lot. So we also see that in the classical texts like BPHS, it is mentioned that Sun does not have a lot of hair, like it does not give a lot of hair on the body. So the spouse can also have less hair on the body and on the head also. So this is not always like literal also, so we need to understand that. Like sometimes it can even mean that somebody's hair is very thin, and somebody's hair is very thick. So the spouse can have like thin hair, so whether it is a male or a female. So things like this also, you will notice like small things about the spouse. And another thing about Sun in the 7th house is also that Sun is associated with our immunity, with our vitality, how much of like Agni we have inside us. So when Sun is in the 7th house, and obviously you can read that as the spouse's ascendant also, because 7th house of your D9 is the Lagna of your spouse. So you will see that the spouse can have a good immunity, can have a good vitality, and they can also be very much like not prone to catching diseases that fast, so it gives a good immunity in that sense. But definitely again we need to look at the signs we need to look at the sign in which Sun is placed in. We need to look at the planets that Sun is conjoined with. If suppose there are more planets, so those planets will also have a result effect on the 7th house. And you also have to see then which planet is becoming the strongest out of the 2 or 3 planets that are there. So this is how you can arrive at a full analysis of the spouse. So let's talk about the next planet now, which is the planet Moon. So suppose Moon is placed in the 7th house of your D9 chart. So firstly you will see that in terms of the physical appearance and the qualities of the spouse will definitely have a lot of moon-like qualities. So we associate Moon with being caring, being nurturing, and like we know that Moon is the queen in astrology, like Sun is the king, and it is also a royal planet. So definitely with Moon also being in the 7th, you will see that the spouse will have very high standards, will like things of good quality, and will be very focused on her or his looks. So Moon is also a planet that is very sentimental, emotional, and you will see that they can you just say something to them and they might get offended very easily. So this is one of the things that you observe with people who have a dominant Moon. And in terms of the physical appearance part also, you will see that Moon usually gives a round body and it gives a plump physique to the person. And but sometimes I have observed that it is not just about having that in the body type, but it can even be on the face, like their face could be roundish and the body might be very lean. So that is also a possibility with this. And you will also see that in terms of their likings, things, they will like things that connect with their emotions very much, because they are people who are very much governed and they feel a lot. So even in the relationships, you will see, like in the marriage also, in the marriage context, they are people who want to have a very deep emotional bond, with you. So if you understand their emotions and if you give them space and time, then they can be people who can form a very deep rapport with you. But if suppose you don't understand their emotions and you don't understand their needs, and you don't give them space when they need, because they are also people who are very moody, so you have to kind of learn to adapt with their mood swings also sometimes. And you have to also understand them, that where they're coming from. Maybe it could be things that are very much deep rooted in their past, they have gone through something very tough in their life, so that is why they are behaving like this. So sometimes so they really feel attracted towards people who understand them in this manner. And you will also observe with this that the spouse will definitely love food, and especially like rich food, because moon is also, as we know, it's exalted in the second house, and that is associated and connected with food and also with ornaments. So like the spouse can be very fond of jewelry, and especially like pearl jewelry, because moon is associated with pearls also, or silver jewelry also. So things like this also you will observe with moon. And we also see that, and we also know this thing about the moon, that it's a very changeable planet, so it is very indecisive also, it's very fickle minded in some way. And it does not stay at one place for too long. So that could be one thing that you will observe in the nature of the person, that even in terms of their appearance, they love to change and experiment a lot with how they're looking, or they might have gone through a major transformation in terms of their appearance, what they might have been looking maybe 10 years back, like not exactly 10 years back, like 2-3 years back also. If you see them after like 2 years, so you will observe maybe some drastic changes done on the face, or in terms of their body type, so, or some weight loss happened, or some weight gain happened, so something like there which is quite fluctuating in their body and in their appearance also. And similarly, depending upon again the sign, you will see that they are also people who can change and switch their mind a lot. Like they are not people who are very fixated sometimes on certain things, and they can be very confused about taking decisions in their life. So indecisiveness is also seen from the moon. And so we also see that moon is a very windy planet, so which means that it is quite prone to catching diseases like cough, cold, viral, and sore throats. So like all these things affect them quite easily, because as we know that sun is associated with having a strong immunity, and because of that fieriness, and moon, as we know, that it has that watery element in it very strong. So due to this reason, this is something that you will notice in them. And in terms of the complexion part also, like we see in the classical text, it is mentioned that it usually gives a fair complexion to the person. So talking about the next planet now, which is Mercury. So suppose you have Mercury placed in the 7th house of your D9 chart. So what does it show? So as we know that Mercury is the young prince in astrology, and it is full of energy and full of curiosity, and it is just like a small child, how they are bubbling and bursting with energy all the time. So definitely you will see all these traits in your spouse, that at times they can behave like a child, and they can be very kiddish, but they can also be very fun loving people, like people who can be really good friends with you. So that friendship is equivalent to companionship for them in this case. And you will also see with Mercury, because it is a quite intelligent planet, so the spouse can be very intelligent also, and they can be very good with numbers, or they can be very good with languages. So anything which is strongly connected with Mercury. And you will also see that they are people who take life in a very light-hearted manner. They are always very cheerful, very bubbly, and but they are not able to sit still at one place for too long. So that is a problem which Mercury comes up with. And they can love traveling, they can love reading, so they can have a lot of hobbies. And there will be something about them that you will see that there is a duality, like some kind of like thing can be there in their trait, which, or in their job, like something in their life is there which is in a split, or it's dual in nature, or some kind of a multiplicity is there, like they could either be having 2 jobs, they could be having 2 businesses. So something like this you will observe, because Mercury, as we know, it promotes multiplicity of any sort, and duality also comes from Mercury. And in terms of the appearance also, you will see that they will be very youthful, they can be younger than you in age, because it promotes youth and anything which has to do with that young energy. And even if they are like in their 40s, they would be people who would be able to talk with anyone very easily, because they have that they are able to connect with people very easily. So this is also a very good quality that you will see about them. And they are not people who are very shy or hesitant to start a conversation even with people that they don't know, so they can very easily make friends also with other people. And there are also people with whom you will see that your communication in the marriage becomes very important, that how you are expressing, how you are communicating, because that is something which will affect and impact the bond of the marriage really, really strongly. So even if like suppose you look at their face also, like the face itself will also be very expressive, like how there are some people who love making funny faces all the time, and they love making people laugh, or they are always cracking some jokes. So this is the kind of personality that you will find with them. And especially all these things will definitely be there with you more, because they are your spouse. And you will also see with this, in some cases they can have a very good business acumen also, because Mercury is also the planet of trade and business. Or they can have a very strong background in commerce, in accounts, they can be a chartered accountant, or they can be in marketing. But this is again based on like other things also, which is like, suppose you have to see the fourth house also of the D9 chart, like what planets are impacting that house to really define the career. But it can show that even if they are not in these fields, they can do very well in those things. And or they can even be fond of, like suppose playing video games a lot, like especially if you have the influence of Rahu coming on Mercury, or you have Mercury Rahu combination, so they can be very fond of playing video games like on PlayStation, so all these things you will find. So Mercury also, as we know, that it's a very diverse kind of a planet, because the kind of things that it represents are a lot, and the variety is a lot. So it's very hard to pinpoint exactly which thing, because you see that Mercury's skills and the kind of communication that we do, it's involved in almost every career that you see. But again, there are certain careers that you will see that Mercury has a very strong role to play, like marketing is there, like a chartered accountant is there, like people who are teaching, like they are primary school teachers, or you are doing something which is connected with small children, with kids. So in that also Mercury becomes very important to look at. And in terms of the appearance part, if we talk about, so Mercury again, like I said, it gives a youthful appearance to the person. It doesn't give a very tall height to the person, so it's usually like a medium height, or can even be short. So tall is definitely not under Mercury. And we also see in terms of the physique, so it usually gives a slender physique, a good metabolism to the person. So they are not really people who accumulate a lot of fat on their body. And also in terms of the complexion part, you will see that Mercury is referred to as grass green. So but yeah, I know what you are thinking, it's not really like the spouse will be grass green in color, but it can show that they can have like a tint or a hue of green on their skin. So, or it could even mean like they could have really prominent veins, like veins you see in the body, and they are green in color. So you can derive those kind of meaning out of the classical text. It is not always like because it's mentioned grass green, so it will, like the spouse will be grass green in color. So that is how you have to interpret it. And like I said, the spouse can definitely be younger to you in age. And even if they are not young, there will be something about them that you will definitely not have that feeling that they are very elder to you, or they are very serious to you. So, and that seriousness is also not there with them, so they are people who are very like chilled out in their life, and they don't take life seriously at all. So coming to the next planet, which is Mars. So suppose you have Mars planet placed in the 7th house of your D9, then what does it mean? So firstly, as we know that Mars is a very fiery planet, it is blood red in color. And so again, it doesn't mean that the spouse will also be blood red in color, but the spouse can have like redness on their face, so they can either have some spots, like red spots, or some redness on the face, or they can be prone to getting angry very fast, because as we know, Mars is a very cutthroat and a pretty violent kind of a planet. But I know what you're thinking, like it is not that, you know, marriage is all about violence and all those things, but it is really showing the basic temperament of the person, you know, like basic temperament of this person is you know, a bit straightforward, is a bit blunt, you know. So they are not really people who like to beat around the bush a lot. They are not very diplomatic in that sense. If they don't like something about you or in the marriage, they will clearly tell you. So in a way it is also good, you know. So I really don't understand that why we see this quality always as being bad or being negative, because at times it can also clear out a lot of things, you know, because Mars is not a planet who likes to keep things for too long, you know. So that kind of an energy is not there with Mars. So it acts very fast. So sometimes you know what happens with people, like in the marriage especially, if you keep things for too long and then suddenly there is an outburst, you know, so that kind of thing gets avoided if like Mars you know, is present in the 7th house, because they are people who will tell you things upfront. And especially this will be more so if you have signs like Aries, like Leo, Sagittarius, because they are fire signs. So with them you will observe this thing even more strongly. And also we see about Mars that it usually gives a short height, like does not give a very tall height to the person. And in terms of the body also, it can give a large body, you know. So that large body is not due to the fact that they are fat or they are very plump, but it could be because of the muscles, like, you know, they could have like a very strong shoulder, like this region would be very prominent. So due to that it appears that the body is a bit large. And again, like slender physique is mentioned, so usually gives you know, a thin waist, can give a thin waist. And they can be people who can be very much involved in any kind of physical fitness or activity. So with this also I have observed that, you know, when Mars is debilitated, like if it is in Cancer sign, then this thing is not so true. Or if suppose Mars is weak in the chart, then also it is not true. So physical fitness and involvement in sports also you will only see if Mars is actually very strong in the 7th house. Or like if suppose it's sitting in the sign of Aries, in the sign of Virgo, then you will see the person will be very focused on health. And otherwise, in other cases, if Mars is not so strong, it can show like you know, the person will be very strong mentally. Like with Mars in the sign of Cancer or Mars with Moon, it will show the spouse will be very resilient mentally. And in general also you will see such people are usually not very timid. They are very courageous, they are very bold, and they are very action oriented people. So they are not people who will wait for certain things to just get to that level. They will act, you know, very quickly. And as we know that you know, Mars is a planet that gives a person cuts, injuries and all these things. So the spouse can be prone to having cuts, you know, or marks on their face or on their body, like something like this you can observe. Like especially if you find that it's in you know, the sign of Aries or in the sign of Taurus, then some cut could be there on the face, you know, like some mark could be there on the face that could be very prominent. So that is also seen with this. And it does not usually give a very smiling face to the person, like so Mars it's not a serious planet like Saturn, but it's also not a planet which is very happy-go-lucky, fun-loving kind of a planet like how Mercury and Venus are there. So it is a planet because it represents such you know, heavy things like war and violence and all these things. So these things can be a bit traumatic also. So due to that reason, and because, you know, it represents anger as an emotion, so that is also associated with being a bit tough, you know. So that toughness is represented on the face as well. So that is why it's a bit sharp face, I would say, not like a serious face, but a bit sharp face you can expect with this. And they will also be very competitive. So any kind of competition, anything where you have to fight it out, they are definitely not scared. So it makes the spouse very competitive, be it anything. And it also makes the spouse very resilient in life, you know. So they are very tough internally, like it's very difficult to defeat your spouse because they are not people who give up very easily, you know. So they keep slogging until they don't get that thing, whatever they want. So in that sense, they are very stubborn with their goals. And especially if you find like suppose Mars is in the sign of Capricorn, so you will find that professionally the spouse will be very ambitious, because it's a sign of Capricorn, so they will be very focused on attaining a particular status, attaining a particular level in their job. So there are also good sides, that you have to see of any planet, so just by seeing Mars in the seventh house, that doesn't mean that marriage is spoiled, because I've seen a lot of comments of people and they are already very scared that they have such planets in the seventh house, because you have to again see and assess the chart as a whole. Again and again I'm saying the same thing, just by having one planet in the seventh house doesn't mean the marriage is like this or the marriage is like that. Similarly, I'll say this for Jupiter also, because Jupiter everybody feels is the most benefic planet. It is also, but just by having Jupiter in the seventh house of your D9 doesn't mean that a divorce cannot happen, or marriage will go very smoothly. So this is not how you have to assess and see the charts. I see people getting scared for no reason sometimes because they see such planets in the seventh house of the D9. So this is a very, I would say, a very elementary way of looking at things. It doesn't work like that. So moving to the next planet, which is the planet Venus. So like suppose you have Venus in the seventh house of your D9, then Venus, as we know, is a very artistic planet. It's a creative planet, and it's a planet which is very feminine in nature. It's a female planet. And so the spouse will definitely be firstly very feminine in nature. So even if it's a male or a female, you will observe this thing about them. They are people who are very pleasure focused also. So they want the best of things in their life, and they are people who would also like not be very hardworking in general. So Venus does not really promote working hard, because it's a benefic planet, it's a Soumya planet in that sense, like how Moon is also a soft planet. So that is why they want the best of things in life, but they are very comfortable, people in that sense. And the spouse can definitely be very artistic, creative. So, but you have to see that sometimes that artisticness or creativity is also coming out in different ways. It is not always about, singing, dancing, drawing and all these things. But it could even be that creativity is coming in their career. Like suppose somebody can be involved in marketing, but they are very creative in that. They come up with creative ideas. So again, creativity is also very huge. You cannot restrict it only to things which have to do with hands. It is also to do with mind. So creativity of the mind also is important. And usually you will see that they are people who are actually like, they want that relationship, in life. They want companionship in life. So spouse is not someone who will just fight with you for no reason. Like if suppose this person is fighting with you, they really want you, or they really want to save the marriage, so they can, they are not really people who will give up very easily. So that thing you will observe, like Venus gives, the spouse is also someone who is very resilient in life, and they have that strong willpower in them to actually make the marriage work also. And you also have to see that actually Venus is the Karak of the D9 chart. Venus is a significator of marriage. So in the seventh house, definitely it will do its best to save the marriage, or to save anything which even comes up, so it will definitely support and promote that. And in the BPHs, you will also see for Venus, it is mentioned that a curly hair is associated with Venus. So in terms of the appearance, you can see that spouse in some cases can also have curly hair. Sometimes like males also have curly hair. And you will also see that Venus is also a very intelligent planet also, because you have to see that we always associate Jupiter with knowledge, with wisdom, Mercury, but Venus is also a planet that is very strongly connected with knowledge. Because you have to, we should not forget that Venus was a planet that actually gave that knowledge and wisdom to the Asuras. So if Brihaspati is the planet of the, Suras, like of the Dev people, so of the Asuras, Venus is the planet that is the teacher. So that is why Venus also has a lot of knowledge. So especially if you see that Venus is particularly placed in signs like Sagittarius, in Pisces, or in its own sign, it can also make the spouse very knowledgeable. So that will also be a quality that has to be noted here. And also with Venus, you will see that the spouse will be a person, like the relationship that you will have with the spouse will be a relationship, that is how a relationship should be like, you know. So like you are hanging out together, you are, you know, doing dancing also, singing also, you are sharing you know, each other's things and emotions and everything. So it is actually giving a very harmonious kind of a marriage or a relationship. That is the basic inherent nature of Venus, and that is how it promotes and supports the marriage. And it is very good to have, you know, at least like one benefic planet or one benefic aspect on the 7th house of the D9 chart, because that planet will always help, you know, in the marriage process. And with this you will also see the spouse, like we associate Venus with being beautiful, and you know, people often have different conceptions of beauty, but generally it really shows a beautiful spouse, you know. So I'm not really here mentioning to the external beauty, but internal beauty, external beauty, internal beauty, whatever. So spouse will be beautiful inside out. So they will be people who will be very compassionate also for other people, like, you know, helping people, because you have to see that Venus at its highest state is exalted in the sign of Pisces, which is a sign of giving away things. It's a sign of being selfless. So all those qualities also you will find in the spouse, not just for you, but for other people also. So another thing to note over here with respect to Venus is that suppose Venus has some malefic aspect on it. You know, so if Venus has some malefic aspect here, then it will really show the spouse will be much oriented towards the materialistic side of life more. The spouse will be more pleasure oriented and enjoying the best of everything. If Jupiter aspects, you know, this Venus, or if Venus has that is aspected by Moon, for example, or anything which in the sign like Venus is placed in, like suppose it's in the sign of Sagittarius, Pisces, in the sign of Cancer, and there are no malefic aspects as such on Venus, or even if like suppose Sun is aspecting it, because Sun is a Sattvic planet. So the more Sattvic planets aspect Venus, so in that case you will you know, you will see the spouse will not be so materialistic, you know. So in that sense the materialistic side comes more with the malefic aspects coming on Venus. If you have more benefic and Sattvic aspects on Venus, and if Venus has association with Sattvic planets, it will promote and give more that pure side of Venus will come out more in the spouse. So that is also the difference you will see, because this is a common misconception, you know, people have with Venus, that it is all about pleasure, it's all about you know, luxury, enjoyment. So that is also true, but again you have to see whether it is Venus Rahu that is there in the 7th house, or if it's Venus Jupiter. So both will give a very different orientation to the spouse. So, but in general you will observe, you know, even with whatever aspects are there, generally the spouse is sweet, you know, is very diplomatic in nature, is a person who really wants to make you know, the relationship work. And so that thing you will definitely observe in the spouse. Like basic inherent nature is not to fight or is not to be very dominant in the marriage. Basic nature is to be understanding and is to actually like have that love and intimacy and bond with the person. So not just like physical intimacy, but also emotional intimacy. So that also becomes very important for them. So talking about the next planet now, which is the planet Saturn. So suppose you have Saturn placed in the 7th house of your D9 chart, then what does it mean? So firstly, you will see that you know, Saturn is a planet which promotes hard work. You know, it is a planet of law and justice, and it's a very fair planet, so it treats everyone equally. And so spouse also, you will see the nature of the spouse will be such that they will also be very fair and just to everyone. So they are not really people who will like taking sides of people for no reason. And very traditional in nature, can be a workaholic also, or can love their job a lot, you know. So they are maybe very passionate about whatever they are doing. Or it could even be like the spouse is maybe tired, you know, a lot of time. They can be lazy also in some ways. So laziness also actually comes from Saturn. So you have to see, like suppose Saturn is in the sign of Aries, it is weak. You know, it's in Scorpio. So in those things, in those cases, you can observe the spouse can also be a bit lazy. But if suppose Saturn is strong, like if it's in Capricorn, it's in Aquarius, it's in Taurus, Libra, in those cases you will observe the spouse will be very traditional. Like traditional can be there in the other two cases also, but the spouse will be very hardworking. And with Saturn, we also observe that it is a planet which is associated with any kind of thing which restricts you, from doing something. Like, it is a planet which sets boundaries for people. So the spouse will also be a person who will not be very open-minded, so that quality you will observe. Like, they are not people who are very broad-minded with respect to a lot of things. So they always have that some boundary, some periphery around which only they are operating. They are not really prone, they don't really enjoy trying out different things. So they are very used to some way of working, some way which it could even be in their wardrobe, like some color that they are fixated on and they keep wearing that color only all the time. So they are not really people who are who want to try out different things in life, like how Mercury is very experimentative, they want to try out different things. So that quality is a bit missing with Saturn. And as we know that it's a planet which is associated with old age, with aging. So it definitely can give an older spouse also, who can be older to you in age, or even if they are your own age, they will have a lot of maturity in them. They will be a bit serious about everything. They'll not be very extroverted by nature, so gives a more introverted spouse. And a spouse who takes very good care of the marriage in terms of the responsibilities, so they are really people who will make the marriage work. They are not really people who give up on marriage very easily. So that is one very good side of Saturn in the 7th house, that it definitely promotes and saves the marriage even if something happens in between, because Saturn naturally gets exalted in the 7th house. So 7th house is a house where it gets a lot of Digbal, it gets directional strength in that house. And it's also, and we also see that Venus and Saturn are very good friends, in astrology. So that is why it always helps the marriage, with having Saturn in the 7th house. But the only thing is that it makes the marriage life a bit dull. Sometimes it can be a bit boring, or it can be monotonous, like you just feel like you don't go out, you don't travel much with your spouse, and you don't try out different things with the spouse, and everything is very boring, and it's the same thing is getting repeated every day. So that is the only downside that you will observe with Saturn in the 7th house. But definitely, if you have aspects on this Saturn, conjunction of Saturn with suppose other planets, will change a lot of things. But if only Saturn is present and it's strong in the 7th house, then it can show these kind of things. And definitely a spouse who is a bit serious about everything in life. So they are not really people who can fully enjoy life, so they somewhere have some responsibilities, some burden on their mind that they are taking of the marriage or something, of the kids, it could be your career, due to which they are not able to enjoy life to the fullest. So that is seen with Saturn in the 7th house. And in terms of the physical appearance part also, so Saturn, like if you see the physical appearance mentioned in the BPHS, it is also mentioned having coarse hair, so that is also associated with. So spouse, like on the head also, the hair can be quite coarse, so this is something you can see, and usually gives a darker complexion. So Saturn is associated, as we know, with darker colors. And definitely a thin body. So Saturn does not give and promote a lot of fat on the body, it gives a thin physique. So these are some of the things, but in terms of the skin also, it could not just be about the complexion part so much, but sometimes you will observe that some people age very fast. Like, even if they are in their 20s, they look like they are in their 30s, or if they are in their 40s, they look like they're in their 50s. So that kind of a thing can be there, like the aging can maybe be very fast, or they can have a lot of gray hair on their head. So, and nowadays it has become very common also, like so many people have, I have seen like some of my friends also, so they are not even like in their 35 or 40 range, but they already have a lot of gray hair. So that thing also you will observe with Saturn in the 7th house. So these are some of the things that are there. So let's talk about Jupiter now in the 7th house of your D9 chart. So suppose you have a Jupiter. So as we know, this is a planet which is associated with dharma, with morals, with principles, and it's known as the guru. So it is represented with knowledge, with wisdom, and with doing the right things, with being ethical in life. and it's the most benefic planet, no doubt about that. And anything which major happens in your life cannot be complete without this planet. So it is truly like shows a lot of blessings also. So all these things you will observe, in the marriage and in the spouse also, that there is a lot of luck, abundance, growth, prosperity, good things that come with marriage. And the spouse also has these things in them. Like the nature of the spouse is such that they are generally very optimistic. They are people who will always guide you, will always help you in life to grow. So that is like the basic inherent nature of this planet. It is not to actually like deceive you. You will also observe that the spouse will be very knowledgeable, or they can be involved in a profession where they have to guide and counsel other people, or they have to teach, so they can be a professor, or they can be a counselor, so these are the kind of professions, or they can even be a lawyer, so these are the kind of professions that you can expect. So we often, tend to think that, Jupiter is all nice, in the seventh house of the D9, and there is nothing negative about it. But, when you start practicing on different charts and, you observe that what has happened, so you realize that it is not, any one planet that will definitely destroy any marriage, or it will save any marriage. So, or it will make the marriage work very beautifully. So it is always a combination of different planets that work together. And I see a lot of people get very scared, seeing one planet placed in the seventh house of the D9 chart. Like if you have Mars in the seventh house, or you have Sun in the seventh house, then it is not as if that marriage is gone, is destroyed. Similarly, just by having Jupiter in the seventh house doesn't promote that the marriage will be very, very good and nothing wrong will happen in the marriage. It is not like this. It is not so much like, black or white. There are shades of gray, and that comes because you have to look at the conjunctions. You have to look at the dispositor of Jupiter. You have to look at how much connections, good connections are being made in the chart, and what are the other planets that are aspecting and impacting the seventh house. How is Venus placed in the seventh house? So like how is Venus placed in the D9 chart? So all these things will also matter a lot. There is another thing that you need to keep in mind with Jupiter in the seventh house of the D9 chart. That is, suppose Jupiter is very strong in the seventh house, like if it's suppose exalted, if it is in Sagittarius or in Pisces, then you will also observe that the spouse's personality will also be very strong. Like they will be a person who will be very independent and will have a mind of their own. And they are not really people who are very open to listening to what you are saying, so they are people who will understand you. They are not really people who will try to dominate you without any reason, but they are also not people who you can say that they are very flexible, so it kind of gives some kind of rigidity also to the person. If Jupiter is very strong in the seventh house of the D9 chart, like that rigidity can come in the spouse. Or it could even be that the spouse is maybe too moralistic, is too pure, is too religious, or too sattvic in nature, due to which sometimes there could be some issues in the marriage. In terms of that, like sometimes you want to just enjoy and be very chilled, with your spouse. But these people can maybe be very moralistic, can put that religion and spirituality can mix, with the marriage. So these are some of the things that you need to be careful about, that that balance is very important, so that is something that they should keep in mind. And you can also observe another quality about Jupiter in the seventh house, that sometimes there are people who want to have like something good happen to you in your life, and they want the best for you, and due to that they might be guiding you or advising you to do certain things in your life. But sometimes people misinterpret it as that, oh, this person is trying to dominate over me, or they're trying to tell what I should do. So so again, you have to understand how Jupiter works, how Mars works. If you have Mars in the seventh house, they could be even like people who would just maybe not want you to do certain things, and they just straight away tell it without any reason maybe. But with Jupiter in the seventh house, you will see that there is always some kind of reasoning behind it. There is always some kind of wisdom behind it, that why they are telling you to do certain things. So this is true only if Jupiter is in that pure dignity, like it should not be corrupted with Rahu, and if or it should not be like with too many malefics influencing it. So then results can change. But if suppose you have Jupiter with Venus, or you have Jupiter Mercury, or Jupiter is getting aspected by Sun, or Jupiter is with Moon, like it's in good dignity, in a good sign, then you can say that definitely it is for the good for you. In terms of the physical appearance and body type, if we talk about, so Jupiter usually gives a bulky body, like that is how it is mentioned. So it is not always like the spouse will be very overweight or will be very fat. It doesn't like really work like that, because sometimes you observe that there are people who generally have a huge body, they are not like very fat in general, but they just have like a big body structure. So that could also be a possibility with this. Or maybe they are like so tall that the body appears as if it is very huge, but it is not, that there is too much fat on the body. But yes, there is tendency to put on weight, and because they are people who are really fond of having good food, and they are fond of eating, so that could be a possibility with this. In terms of the complexion also, if we talk about, like I had mentioned in the science video also, so it gives a tawny complexion and tawny eyes, like, so that is what is mentioned in BPHS. So tawny is like shades of like golden brown, orange, like, so something which has a bit of shine also, and has that some warm brownness also in it. So that is a kind of shade that it usually gives, and can give like light brown eyes, or like dark brown eyes also. So that brown element is always there with it, and definitely a very positive and a very pleasing appearance. So they are not really people who are very like serious, or they are not really people who are just always so they are very pleasant. If you look at them, like, they are really people who you feel attracted towards that positive energy. So that is how you can describe it as. So if you have Rahu in the 7th house of your D9 chart, then what does it mean? So firstly, it shows that the spouse that you will have will definitely be a bit unconventional in nature, unorthodox. So they are not really people who like to follow what is being told to them. So they don't blindly trust, blindly follow anyone. They are people who have an independent mind. They want their space, so you will observe this with Rahu especially, like they are not really people who can you cannot tell them what to do. You cannot really put them and just make them blindly follow anything. They will always question, they will always ask that why should I do this. So that is why you have to be very intelligent in order to deal with them firstly. And with this also, we observe that the spouse will be such who will be very broad-minded. So that is one very positive aspect that we look at Rahu, that they don't judge people very easily. So they are also people who are actually very good at risk taking, so they are not at all afraid, and they would have done something in their life that would have maybe been very challenging for a person like them. Like maybe somebody was in a small town or in a village, and they were the first ones to move out of that place, to a bigger city or to a different country. So those are the kind of leaps, that Rahu kind of pushes you to take. Like the spouse would have done something like this in their life that could have challenged what their society or where they're coming from would have, told them to do. And definitely with this, you also observe that, you get a person who is very open-minded with respect to trying out and different things which will make them excel in life. So they are not really people who will be very much closed in that sense. So like, but in general, with Rahu in the 7th house, you will definitely see that the spouse will be a bit distinct, and they will try to create a distinct image about, around themselves, whenever they interact with people. And especially if you find like Rahu is with Mercury or Venus, or is present in these signs, then the spouse will also be very social, so will be fond of interacting with different people, will love being in the public limelight. And also if it is with Sun, or it is in the sign of Leo also, then you will observe such traits in the spouse. But one thing we definitely see that, the spouse is such that who loves anything connected with foreign, who loves putting themselves in a position where they are more ambitious, where they can get more things in life. So that aim to do well in life is always there. That could be either through the spouse or through the marriage also, like they have that ambition inside them, desire to grow in life, in that sense, to get the best of things in life. or even if they are very focused on their career, they would have that desire to be at the top, to be at the best. Because we have to understand that Rahu is actually a very ambitious planet also. It's a go-getter planet. It is not a lazy planet at all. So with this also, you will observe that the spouse will be very street smart, will be very much on the go, and they would be very aware about what is happening in the world. They can also be very good with technology, so all the things which Rahu represents, like photography, or they could have some very strong connection with a foreign country. They could have worked in a foreign country, or they can be from a different culture, caste, community. All those things also come into the picture. But mainly in this video we are talking about the personality part, the nature part, so that you will observe that they are not really people. They can be a bit of rebels, in that sense that they will not accept things as it is. They will want to know the basic rationale behind it, the reasoning behind it. So that questioning ability comes with Rahu. And you will also observe that they can be very good with numbers also. They can have different, they can have a very abstract thinking, very out of the box thinking. They can have very good great ideas about doing things in a different way. So those are all the positive aspects of this planet. But if suppose you find that Rahu's dignity is not so great in the chart, then it can also make the person very greedy, and that illusion, that deception, and all those things also come into the picture. But that is with a negative dignity of Rahu. With a positive dignity of Rahu, these are the things that I just described. So if we talk about the physical appearance part of Rahu in the 7th house, so you will observe that it's very difficult to actually put like a tag that how they will look like, because as we know that Rahu is a planet that loves camouflaging, so it is a planet which changes a lot, just like the moon. So in general, you can observe that the spouse will be very fond of experimenting and doing different things on their body and on their face. Like for example, coloring their hair, or having a tattoo, so something like this could you can identify and see. But in general, that what kind of a complexion exactly, what kind of an appearance exactly, it's very difficult to tell, because a lot will depend upon the conjunction that Rahu is conjunct with any planet. If suppose there is there, if there is no planet, then you have to look at the sign. So suppose you have Rahu in the sign of Aries, so you can say that the spouse can have the appearance part and complexion part like Mars, because now Rahu is having that strong effect of Mars in the 7th house. So the spouse can also behave in that manner, and the spouse can act in that manner, and in terms of the appearance also it can give like that. And so like this you can see for different signs, like Rahu is present in this sign. Like suppose it's in the sign of Venus, like in Taurus or in Libra, so the spouse can be more fond of trying out different colors, doing makeup for example. You will also observe with Rahu that they would definitely love creating a different image about themselves, be it with you or be it with any person. Like they will definitely act very differently in the public, and they'll be very different at home. So this difference also you will see with them. And so talking about Ketu now in the 7th house, so suppose you have Ketu in the 7th house of the D9 chart, then what does it mean? So Ketu, as we know, it is a headless planet, in astrology, so it doesn't really think so much from the head, but it feels more. So it is more intuitive in that sense, and it is also connected with being spiritual and with getting moksha in life. And we know that Ketu is a planet which has nothing to do with materialistic things. It's a very detached energy, and it has everything to do with non-materialistic things more. So with this, firstly we see that especially if Ketu is in a good dignity, like by good dignity I mean if it is associated with benefic planets like Venus, like a Sun, like Moon, or with Jupiter. So Sun and Moon, as we know, they are Sattvic planets. Jupiter is also a Sattvic planet. So when Ketu is associated with this kind of an energy, or it is placed in signs like Cancer, like in Pisces, in Sagittarius, in Leo, so we see that the spouse actually has that innate purity in them, to do good for other people. Like Ketu, actually a lot of people confuse this, for a very different kind of an energy. But if you understand it at a different level, you will also observe that Ketu is actually a very pure planet. It has a childishness in there inside it, that it is not able to sometimes other people are not able to understand, this energy, and other people sometimes misinterpret or misunderstand them, and that can happen between the spouse and you also. But if you understand this energy, you will observe that it is an energy which is very pure, because it is very strongly connected with animals, it is very strongly connected with healing, it is connected with things that are traditional, so even with like all these benefic aspects on Ketu, you will observe the spouse will be actually very traditional, will be very rooted, will be very grounded, will be very simple, so these are the qualities that you can expect. And in terms of the height, Ketu doesn't really promote and give a very tall height to the person, it usually gives a short height. And in terms of the other parts of the physical appearance, you can observe that Ketu can give long hair, to the person. Like, so even if it's a male or a female, the spouse can have long hair, or the spouse can have like a lot of hair on the body. So that can also be a possibility with this being in the 7th house. And also, so if Ketu's dignity is not good in the chart, like if it's surrounded by too many malefics and it's not, the dispositor is associated with a lot of malefics, then it can give a very cutthroat, kind of a nature like Mars, like ability to not listen, being very cranky, being very childish, and just doing things very in a headless manner. Like sometimes you as a spouse would wonder that why did you do this thing, why did you say this thing. So not having that ability to comprehend what should be done, in what way, what am I supposed to say, what am I not supposed to say. So those are the kind of mistakes that Ketu keeps doing if the dignity is not good. But if it is with that, if it has a pure dignity, like if it's with good planets and all, so I mentioned that you can expect really good things also out of Ketu. And in that case, Ketu can also make the spouse very spiritual, and it can give a lot of healing abilities, like psychic abilities, healing abilities to the spouse. Like especially if you have like Moon Ketu in the 7th house, the spouse can be a healer, can be a psychic, and can have good intuition powers. So these are also some of the things. But generally we say that, and it is known that Ketu in the 7th house is not so much welcome, because as we know that it is nothing to do with materialisticness, it has everything to do with non-materialistic things. And marriage is actually a pretty materialistic thing. So now the question would be like, how do you manage and how do you control this energy? So the number one thing which you need to see is actually the ability to let go, like ability to let go of a lot of things in marriage, and to be having a more spiritual bond with a spouse, so that is also not so easy to do sometimes. But if you involve yourself in more spiritual practices, and if you create the marriage in that way that you are very aware about your soul connection with the spouse, and you are not so much focused on the pleasure side of things so much, and you are having very sattvic lifestyle with the spouse. So these are some of the things which will make the Ketu better in the chart, like even if it's supposed giving you a bit of different results. So these are the ways by which you can manage and mitigate the results. But this is something which is very difficult to do, and many people are not able to do it. And with respect to the spouse's nature, another thing that you will observe is that the spouse can, so in terms of the physical appearance and complexion part about Rahu and Ketu both, it's actually very difficult to tell exactly, because we know that both these planets have a lot of influence and they behave very much like the planets that they're conjunct with and the sign in which they are placed in. So those things also need to be given a lot of importance and weightage for both these planets. And you will observe, another thing that you will observe about Ketu in the 7th house is that the spouse can be a bit confused and directionless also in their life. Like they might not be knowing exactly what they are supposed to do and what is best for them. So something like this also you can observe in their nature and in their personality. And at times they can, like I mentioned, that they can start acting like a kid and they can make mistakes, so that is also seen with this. But generally you will observe that to handle such kind of an energy, and if you feel like Ketu is impacting you in this manner, it is always best to actually pray to Ganeshji, because Ganeshji is very strongly symbolized by Ketu. So even if like you have Venus Ketu connection and Ketu is in the 7th house of the D1 or in the D7 chart, or in the D9 chart, then you can like have a very strong connection with Ganeshji, so that can help to mitigate, like, you know, some of the problems, because I know like sometimes this combination can be a bit problematic, but it is again not in every case. So you cannot just say that somebody has Ketu in the 7th house in the D9 chart, so the marriage will be like this, or Venus Ketu conjunction always gives something bad in a relationship. It can give, but again there are always other factors also that go along with it. You also have to see the degrees, you know, of Venus and Ketu. So without the degrees, it's very difficult to say that something like this will happen or not. So these are some of the things that you can see about you know, different planets in the 7th house of the D9 chart. So I hope that you enjoyed this video and you learned something new from this. So thank you so much for watching.